You're listening to the Sales Today podcast, and I'm your host, Fred Copestake. On this podcast, we explore how sales professionals can develop a more modern approach to selling, the application of virtual and hybrid selling techniques, how to create meaningful business relationships, and much more. And welcome to this episode of the Sales Today podcast, where I'm delighted to be joined by Ryan Reisert. I asked Ryan how he wants to be introduced, and he said, just a cold caller. But then I did say, well, that's not quite right, is it? Because aren't you 4 times champion performer of the worst cold call ever? So welcome, Ryan, anyway, and just correct me on this unwanted title.
Thanks for having me on the show. And it's actually 4 going on 5 ex performer of worst cold caller in the world. Hopefully I get to 6 by the end of the year, but I don't know. We'll see if there's enough time.
I didn't realize I was in company of such mediocrity. No, joking apart, I know you're a specialist in this area and can give us some great advice around cold calling. And anyway, all the pressure's on me because you're also a podcast host of a very decent podcast called Sales Mall, which you speak to with another rugby guy. So I'm not going to get too much of an issue here. So no, seriously, thank you for coming on. And I want to get straight to the point on this, if you like, which is people are scared to cold call quite often. Why is that? Why do you think that's going on?
I mean, there's a variety of factors that go into that fear. It's human nature to not really be comfortable talking with strangers. From a young age, we are conditioned to not really blurt out and just speak freely. We're supposed to raise our hands, ask permission, get in line, things like that. At least in the States, that's how school is. It's almost like a prison military system, not really a free, open world to explore. And that's a dark way to start a conversation today, but that's just kind of how I look at it. Get in line, don't talk. It, so it's a thing that's conditioned. It's also human nature. And as you get older, you really fear failure. You fear saying something that's not right. You fear the rejection that somebody's not going to like you. And these days, more than ever, everyone wants to please everyone. They don't want to offend anybody. So you're seeing more and more of that. The rise of digital makes it easier to avoid having conversations with humans. And so we don't get a lot of practice, even in our personal life. Relationships that are managed via text messaging, even though you could pick up the phone and call your mate, as you say it over there, or your families, your loved ones. It's all text based now. So we don't get a lot of practice. There's this fear of rejection, failure. And then there's also just this lack of understanding of, of just how it works. Most people want to be successful when they're doing something. And when you start to call, you realize that there's a lot of what feels like failure before the success. If you look at success being only that positive outcome and not the whole experience. And what I mean by that is most people call expecting to get to the outcome that they desire, when the reality is the first outcome that matters, the only one that matters, is that you just realize that the channel works to engage with this person you're trying to reach. They picked up the phone. That's a win. Okay. Now nothing else matters in that very first engagement besides you just got some information. You realize that this is a channel you might be able to reach them in the future. And from there, it's all about building this conversation funnel, just like marketing works. It's telemarketing. That's how it starts. And so there's just a lack of awareness and understanding there. And then finally, the math behind it, which is daunting for a lot of people. And they don't really know their numbers. They don't know their ratios. They don't know what it takes. And so they both success and failure when it's using the phone. We talked about why they hate it or they fear it, but even when they're doing well, you see a lot of reps that will pick up the phone, have a success on the very first couple of calls, and then stop for the day versus continuing. The number one outcome that matters the most is not the outcome you seek, it's the total holistic approach, right? There's so many yeses, nos, maybes, not nows in your market every single day that you need to get through. You can't just stop at the good one, and you certainly shouldn't stop at the bad one. You got to progress through to make sure that you're getting through your market and moving towards the concept of, market dominance, which is I'm talking to everybody I can at the right time to discover where they're at and then following up when the time's right.
Cool. So a lot of mindset stuff here. It sounds like you need a not only just good understanding, but a pretty robust mindset. Yeah, I was giggling when you were saying the stuff about school, but actually, yeah, I was thinking kind of very first school. If you're messing around or not actually messing around, doing something creative, you're told to sit on your hands.
Yeah.
Actually, I suspect we're about to talk about being really creative, but anyway. So yeah, it was quite, schools or prison, but then a lot of this, it is mindset based. We need this robust mindset. That sounds like the starting point to me. That if we start to build that, then we can start to get into like the best practice and the techniques and stuff. So, what are some of the thoughts that we can do to get up that better mindset?
The first thing you have to have is this belief that the reason you're making the call is that you might be able to help the person that's on the other line. Like, you know, or they're going to benefit, they're going to learn something, they're going to experience something they've never experienced before, that you're going to help them realize a risk or a threat. You're going to open them up to new opportunities. You're going to solve a problem they might have right now. Like you have to actually believe that. You cannot believe that you're an interruption, that they're not going to like it, that they're going to yell at you, that they're going to be frustrated. If you have that mindset going in, then there's a good chance that that's what's going to happen. But if you have the other mindset, it's like this person's going to be thank me, they're going to thank me for this conversation. I'm actually going to be able to help them right now. The outcome of the conversation is like, thank you for the call, Ryan. Not don't effing call me again, Ryan. But just thinking that from the very beginning is going to put you down the path of potentially seeing that as the outcome. Okay. So you have to believe that when you pick up the phone and you're going to call this person, it's actually worth calling. Believe it or not, most people are building lists and going to call people that like there's no there's no reason to call them in the first place. So don't make that call. Like this just doesn't make any sense. So that's the first thing. Call people who you believe, like actually believe that you might be able to serve. And if you believe that, then it becomes a lot easier. And now when your belief system, you also need to not think or believe that you're an interruption, that they're going to be annoyed, that it's better to use another channel, that some other channel is less intrusive, which is mind blowing to me, right? My inbox is full. I get so frustrated with the amount of cold email I have to go through. And someone thinks that that's less intrusive than just calling me, which I can ignore a call a lot easier than I can ignore my inbox full of crap. So you have to actually understand what's going on and not to disjoint the email. If the email is valuable, send the email. If the LinkedIn message you think is valuable, send it, whatever it is. That's the mindset you have to have going in. But if you're automating, you're randomly just like calling down a list, you're doing stuff that makes no sense, then yeah, it's not going to work for you. You have to believe it works, and you have to believe that what you do is going to serve the person you're calling, and that will really help your mindset going into a cold call.
Interesting. I want to take back a little bit here because it was interesting. So if you're listening to this on audio, you can't really see what Ryan was doing, but when he was talking about the mindset, he was putting his hands up on the side of his head and doing this kind of thing. And he said, believe that they're going to say, "Hey, Ryan, thanks for the call." So again, I'm going to interpret a little bit here. It looks like you build quite a strong mental representation of that success. It's there in your brain. You've experienced it. You've been it. You've done it. It feels good because your brain knows all that, and you're using that very deliberately, for want of a better term, to psych yourself. Am I correct? Was that too much of an assumption? Am I reading too much into it?
No, 100%. No, what you think, who you be is what you create, right? So you have to have this mental picture that this is going to happen. You have the champion's mindset, right? A
Yeah.
winner's mindset. It's, whether it's sport or selling or life, relationships, etc. What you think, who you be is what you create. And 100%, right? You've got to be able to visualize this. That's the whole idea of mindset. It's not just
Mm.
a buzzword. It's like legitimately thinking this is the way, this is the path. Unfortunately, most people read and believe that when it comes to the phone, all the things I just covered are the truth. And the fundamental truth is that's not true. It's true for some, right? But not for all. Right? Some people absolutely do despise receiving a phone call from a stranger. Others absolutely appreciate it. Some might even crave it, desire it,
Mm.
believe it or not. They're lonely. They want your call. No, especially during the saw this in the pandemic.
Yeah.
There were so many people. This is when I started my live stream cold calling in the middle of the pandemic, 2020, right when it started, April, a couple weeks once we realized that people weren't falling dead on the street and maybe things weren't as crazy as they're saying. The amount of people that were like, whoa, you can't be doing sales right now. That's just, it's not a good idea. It's like, we have to drive our economy. If you don't, I just said this recently. Elon Musk says, if you don't make stuff, there's no stuff. If you don't sell stuff, there's no stuff. You have to make and sell stuff or there's no stuff. That's what drives our economy. So it's our duty as sellers to get out there and have conversations. And there were so many people saying, oh, it's rude. I had clients that literally the CEO said, we will not cold call at this time. It is just not sensitive to our clients, which makes no sense. People have to buy stuff to service their businesses, or you clearly don't believe in what you do. Wouldn't matter if it was in the middle of the pandemic or in a bullish market, right? You have to believe that you can serve your people. Now, if you're selling something that didn't serve them, then don't make that call. That's the exact same time what we just talked about. If you don't
Yeah.
believe, don't make the call. But there are people out there that need what you have. If not, you don't have a business. When I was making the calls, so many people talking about, oh, it's insensitive. It's not right. And of course, when I was making some of the calls, some people were a little upset. Hey, why are you making calls right now? And I
Mm.
would explain myself and they might hang up. They might yell at me. It's okay. Others were thankful beyond belief. Weeks into this thing, they're holed up in their own world in their house, etc. And they're like, wow, I haven't spoken to some, I literally haven't talked to anybody in weeks. Thank you for the call. Right.
Yeah.
It, that is a mental game, but it's also just an understanding of how this works. And at the end of the day, as a seller, it's your duty to get out there and serve your market, right? That's literally your job and it's a requirement to drive our economy. If it's not happening, there's no stuff, right?
Yeah, and there's a really important part in that. So if you're just randomly ringing people, if you started A in the phone book, on the phone list, it's probably going to be a taxi company anyway, isn't it? But you, they don't need your things. It's pointless because no, these people, I've targeted them. We can make a massive impact on what they do. So it's rude not to call them. I've got to share this stuff, get through, and then have that impactful conversation where they're like, "Wow, thank you so much." That kind of mental representation you've got of, yeah, did a good one there is now real, which then strengthens back into the visualization. No, so cool. So right, mindset based around belief, using some of those self-talk patterns as well that you seem to be using. Okay, I am here to do a good thing. Great. Believe I'm doing it. What next?
It's funny. I'll call this out. Jennifer Standish wrote these little flashcards. Got this, I promise. Affirmations for cold callers. I love this thing. I don't know if you can see it on here. Jennifer Standish, you'll see her on LinkedIn. It's a cool
Affirmations.
thing. You can get this on Amazon, I think. And it's literally like flip cards, which I love showing up. But this is the one that's on my desk right now. I enjoy reaching out to people I can help. And there's a whole bunch of these. But
Cool.
you just said that with the visualization, affirmations, and it's a pretty cool little concept I like to share with folks that are just getting started. These are the things that you say, I am an expert. I do enjoy helping people who I serve. Things like that. It makes a huge difference, right? Not I'm an annoyance, no one wants my calls, no one picks up the phone. I'm just going to go to voicemail anyway. Those types of things. They're going to ghost me. And this goes into the conversation as well when you start to treat your prospect like they're lying to you. Hey, send me some information. Oh, most people who say that, they're just saying that because they're rude. Do you actually want it or not? I don't know. You cold called me, bro. Ask for some more information and I got to go. Right? Take it as a truth, not a lie. These are all things that will really up-level your success and experience making calls. Don't interrogate someone you just interrupted for the first time when they tell you some information. It's probably a good idea to take it as a truth in the beginning versus treating them like a nemesis. Right? That's not who they are. So
I love that. No, what's funny about this is that some of these things are, I say obvious, but it's just they're reasonably easy to do. It's like, get your brain. These are techniques which work because people who are elite performers in sport, in sales, in whatever, are using them. Start to apply them. You're in the right brain space to be able to do this. Ready for optimal performance. So what then are some of the things? What are some of the techniques? It's all very good. Yeah, right. Well, I can use these techniques. I can play rugby for England now, mate, because my brain's there ready. But I'd probably need some skills. Yeah, I
yeah.
probably need better physique and back needn't be broken, but need some skills to now make this brain, this mindset really come to life.
Yeah. And the thing about skills, don't a lot of people will spend a lot of time reading and listening to podcasts and watching webinars and really delaying actually getting it done. And the number one thing you have to do is just get out there and do it, right? So there's some fundamental things you want to have in place first. You should have a list of people you can help. We just talked about that.
Mm.
That's the first thing that'll help you. Take the time to build a list of people you do believe you can help. Don't call down a phone book A to Z. Now that you have
So
a
a list of people can help.
You believe
Believe
you
you
can
can.
help.
Yeah.
You believe you can help because you don't know until you have the
Yeah.
conversation. Okay, so
Yeah.
make the list. That's step one.
Yeah.
Step two is know exactly what, and I've added this step recently, thanks to feedback from Ed Porter and my buddy Sean Cease. But I used to say make a list, call the list, follow up. But now it's make a list, know exactly what to say. So have a messaging framework locked in. And so many people are against scripts, but the reality is if you know how to frame a cold conversation, there's a certain amount elicited response that you can drive based on how you frame the conversation. Most people will come in, introduce themselves, pitch slap you, and then get knocked out in the rebuttal. Boom. But if you break up the conversation, you establish a two-way conversation, then you're controlling the destination, right? You've got this map and you have a framework to drive this person through the journey. Now you can't predict everything they're going to say, but by using certain phrases, words, phrases, and sentences, you can elicit a certain number of responses and be prepared for those. So write it out. Actually, again, going back to visualization, think through it. And I'm talking about role play right now. I'm just talking about going through it. If I say this, they might say this. If they say that, I'll say this. If they say this, I'll say that. If they say this, I say that. Now I go and you've got this decision tree, if you will. But
Mhm.
keep in mind, it's a framework. So you're always trying to drive people back into these sections of the conversation. And so know exactly what to say, have it mapped out. That's step two. Step three, call the list, make the calls. Okay. Now, when you make the calls, there's going to be people who, again, are thankful for your conversation. There's going to be some people that might bark at you. Less people will bark at you than you think. Just make the calls, get through them. If someone barks early, get out of there. And if they're barking often, get back to that messaging and go right back up to a step and make some adjustments. Okay. Something's off. It's either your message or you got to go one more up. It's your list message. Okay? Once you get there. Okay. Now, once you've called the list, the last step 4 is to follow up. And when you follow up, you've got to make sure that you're not just following up with the conversations that you thought were positive. You got to follow up with all of them. Remember, you believe that you can help them. And so if some people were hanging up before you even introduced yourself or your idea or reason, you got to follow up. And those are one of the most important leads that you can work. It's probably where most of the gold is and top performer selling. Everyone knows this, but junior reps will avoid those calls like a plague, and that's where the money's made. So make a list, know exactly what to say, call the list, follow up, and when it comes to getting the skill set, you just have to practice by doing. You have to get in there and do it. You have the roadmap, you have the phraseology and the messaging. You're not going to get anywhere role playing with a bunch of people. You got to get out there and have real calls and then role play the scenarios where you're getting caught up if you need some practice, but get back out there and have some more calls. One of the things that I always do with new reps is I already have all this stuff set up for them. Here's the list of people I believe we can help. Here's the message I would use for you if I was going after this list. Let's go ahead and I'll read through it so you can hear what this sounds like. You read through it so you can get through this process. But I'm going to go make some calls so you can see it. We don't need to role play it. You can see it. And then you go and make a call or two. And as soon as you start getting hung up, which is usually just in the beginning where they can't introduce themselves, we'll role play through that as you've actually experienced what it's like real before this role play. Because there's nothing like a real cold call that can be role played. And so that's how you get the skill set up. You just get out there and do it. Every single rep I've ever coached on cold calling messes up in the introduction the very first time they make a call. They can barely get their name out.
Yeah, I was going to say, forget your own name. No, who am I?
It's just okay. Okay, so now we're gonna practice this. Hey, this is Ryan. Hey, this is Ryan. Hey, this is Ryan, or whatever you want to say. But that's literally where it starts. Okay. Hello. Hey, this is Ryan. Perfect. That sounds great. Now make the next call. Hey, this is Ryan. See how that went? Next one. Origination opener. Probably stumble through it. Right. Okay. Let's role play it. Hey, this is Ryan. Provision ace opener. Now that sounds good. Now let's go make it. So until you experience it, it's really hard. It's just I always go back to sports stuff. You got to learn the fundamentals. You practice the fundamentals. But in sales, it's it's really hard to simulate that unless you're doing it. Like role plays and things like that, and cold calling anyway. It just I mean, it's the same thing with a mock presentation. It's always just like awkward and weird. It's not real. It's you got to get out there and do it. You just have to do it.
Sales is pretty unique, actually, in that you can, once having learned something, go out and start to do it really quickly. In sports, it's, hang on, we're going to use this move that we've just done on the chalkboard in the first game. We want to run through that on the practice field a couple of times. Big sales guys, you can go out and you can do that. Because guess what? If it works straight away, happy days. If it doesn't, well, okay, it's going to be that learning thing, and we can always go back to it anyway. Yeah, so it is quite. I know we do use a lot of sports analogies because we talk about elite performance, don't we? But yeah, I think it is different there. So to get out and do it. I want to come back to it just a couple of things on there. So script. How many people do you find go, oh, no, I don't use a script. I don't need a script, because you need to react to what the person says. I've been doing this a long time. I know how this stuff works. I'm cleverer than that, or it's just below me. Do you get that?
95% of people. Yeah.
Bad question, Fred. How many times do you get that a day?
Yeah.
Really? 95% of people in this, I don't need to do the script.
Yeah. I mean, or they'll say, hey, that's great when we're just getting started. Once we're good, I don't need my script anymore. It's like, okay. I use a script on every single call I ever make. I want my script up. I want to have it in front of me, front and center. I use a digital version, not a paper version, because I'm constantly evolving it. Right. Oh, I don't like how that came out my mouth. I'm going to adjust this and optimizing every word. I put in the stammers and the pauses that are necessary. It's like you script those in. You want to sound more human. If you're too robotic, you're not going to come across as genuine. There's all sorts of art that goes into that, and there's science around the actual phrases and sentences you use. Again, I use the exactly what to say concept. I'm a big fan of Phil Jones' book, Exactly What to Say, his magic words.
Yeah.
Right? Things like that go so far, and that's how you go from being a novice rep who converts just those who are ready to roll now, maybe 3 to 5% of your calls, versus an elite performer who's going to be getting in the 20, 30% conversion. 1 out of 20 calls say I'll take a meeting versus 1 out of 3 or 4. The script's key. It's what it is. It's
Yeah.
the messaging, it's the words, it's marketing. Remember that. It's the copy. It's literally, you have to be consistent and you have to be confident delivering it. I don't know that many people that can perform conversation in the exact same way over and over again, and then identify opportunities to change it and then remember to go back there. They're just going to keep going back to their old ways and miss out on opportunities. Even with a script, you miss out. Dang it. I should have paused a little bit more, should have potentially shifted over here, should have said that versus that. And you're constantly getting better, but having that in front of you just makes it so much easier.
Yeah. It's when you said that, I've written down you script stammers and pauses. And my mind went to, I don't know, it might be apocryphal, but you can imagine it happening. Winston Churchill wandering the corridors of Westminster, practicing speeches. But you've done this speech so many times and you just know the way you look at it. And he's like, yeah, I do know the speech, but what I'm doing is I'm practicing my ad libs. One of the greatest speakers who delivers a rhetoric is practicing where he's going to do the things he's accidentally making up, because that's
Yep.
going to be the thing that makes a difference. Yeah. So exactly what to say, Phil Jones. That's another resource that people should be looking at. And then the other question I had there was around the follow-up. How do you follow up? Is this follow-up again by phone? Are we now into email? Are we using LinkedIn? How does that work?
So if it's the first conversation, it's a great idea to compound that conversation into other channels, follow up to make sure that the message is being received. Again, potentially regardless of the outcome, but not always, right? If somebody just hangs up quickly, I don't want to leave a digital footprint for them to just say not interested. I just told you that type of thing. I'm just gonna follow up on that with another call later because I've identified that that channel is where I could reach them. As we talked about early on in the show today. So I'm gonna follow up on
Mm,
phone. I won't open up the other channels just yet because I haven't gathered enough information to know if it's really them and do they care enough to receive it. I only want to opt in other channels post a positive, what I call a completion, which is I got through to them, they heard what we have to say, and there's an actionable next step. We're going to follow up at a future date. So if they just hang up, the phone is that's where I reached you. I'm going to follow up on the phone again. Now, if it was something more positive, a send me information, or yes, let's take a meeting, or a referral, or maybe not now, but sometimes down the future, they didn't tell me to F off. If it's something like that, then I'm going to compound that straight away. If they're on LinkedIn, I'll do a LinkedIn connection request. I like to record personalized videos in those requests from a cold call so I can differentiate myself a bit. Like, hey, we just spoke. Their pictures up in the corner. You got a little vidyard with your picture in the corner. And you go, hey, how's it going face to face here in a digital environment? Thought it'd be great to add you on this. And then you can also follow up with an email if it's relevant. And what we're doing there is trying to open up these additional channels to identify where they prefer to communicate for the future follow up, but don't forget that they picked up the phone. So if they pick up the phone, they pick up the phone again and again, and you're going to be able to turn back to that. And you should start there if you're reaching people on the cold call. what a lot of folks tend to do is they take the call, they follow up over email, and then all they're doing is emailing them, "Hey, is this still interesting? Hey, is this still interesting? Hey, is this still interesting?" And then they're quote unquote being ghosted, and they never pick up the phone again. So you got to pick up the phone
Right.
and call them again. Now, even in the situations where you might get cussed at and bad, it's like, "Hey, don't call me." That's also a place where you could follow up on other channels. The script here could be, "I hate cold calls too. Really apologize for reaching you. It sounds like it's the worst possible way to start an introduction. This is exactly why I was reaching out. If this is relevant at all at some point in the future, I'll make sure not to make that call again," or something of that nature. Be humble, and you can open up conversations by compounding that into another channel. Like, it sounds like it looks like apparently the phone is not the right place to reach you. Not sure if email is either, but I wouldn't be reaching out if I didn't think I might be able to help you in some way. This is what my thoughts were. Is that relevant at all, or am I way off base? So that's what I mean by follow up in the compounding of the initial conversation, but also following up in the continuously, right? You map your addressable market. That's your list. These are the people I think we can serve. You call them and you want to have conversations. You want to understand where they're at in the buyer's journey, right? Only 3% of them are buying right now. 7% are open to it. 30% aren't thinking about it. And 60% don't think they're interested in some way. So most of the people are not ready to even have a conversation. So you got to follow up with them. And ideally what you're doing is you're getting everybody you could ever possible talk to on a list, which ones you can get on the phone, and then you're talking to them once a quarter. And that's market dominance. When you can get there, you're not going to miss out on any potential opportunities in the market. You're going to identify those who aren't thinking about it before your competitors do, and you're going to maximize your chance of winning because you're the one that's actually driving innovation, ideas, education, introductions to new opportunities, opening up your market for their own support on other things that you can't help with. Like it's relevant and related, but maybe three priorities above yours. Those are the things that start to help you win over time.
Years, education, open up the market. If you can do that stuff, that's the reason that you should be calling somebody. That's what you can use to drive the belief. Add in a bit of the mental representation, the visualization stuff. Yeah. Scripted as part of the structures. And you're ready to rock and roll. You're good. Good to go.
Make a list, know what to say, call the list, follow up.
Make a list, know what to say, call list, follow up. What's scary about it? When the way you've broken that all down and dealt with the fears first and actually where they come from, which are real, okay, but this is how to deal with those fears. So let's do the mindset work first, then do some practical stuff, which actually I think just reinforces the mindset. Actually, this is really good, and this is why I'm making scripts. And yeah, I'm good at words. Well, actually, if you're really good at words, start writing them down. Start writing them down, look at them, play with them, test them. Yeah. And get out and
Even
do
if,
it.
even if,
Get it done.
if you're not good at words, which I'm still working on this quite a bit, it's even more important, right? I'm a math guy. When I started my sales career, my grammar, my English, all this stuff is still not great because I'm a math person, I didn't study the language. So get out there and practice your craft, right?
Yeah.
Read as much as you can, not just listen, like physically read books. It will really help
Yeah.
you get better at these things. It's so vital. And the momentum you gain from doing those things and consistently committing to the process, doing this daily, these are things that will help you make it a lot easier and less scary. And it's fun. It's fun when you start to do it. It's once you get through a couple of calls every single day, it's like, man, why don't I just do this all day long?
Who doesn't want to share interesting, useful stuff with people that they are thanking you for and going, oh, I'm so pleased that we had this conversation.
Right.
All right. Very cool. Any last words from you? Because I'm just aware because time has just flown. Any last words from you? Any sort of last piece of encouragement or any things I should have asked? but you're a podcast guy. Before I ask you just to say how we can get in touch.
Oh, yeah. And I think we covered some pretty decent stuff today. I think that the biggest thing that I would reiterate from our conversation today, because like the mindset piece, the visualization piece, these are all great things, but having a process, make the list, call list, follow up, but it really has to start with your personal belief in what you're bringing to market. If you're working for an organization in sales and you don't actually believe, like you actually don't believe in the product or service, like, you don't understand it enough, you truly just don't think it works, you should probably find another job because all this stuff we just talked about won't work.
No, it won't. Yeah, absolutely, you're right. It's you could all the techniques, the tricks,
It won't work.
no, it won't work because it's not that it's built on. It's a house built on sand, isn't it? Yeah.
Have like you have to be there, right? If you feel fraudulent because the thing that you're pushing is not getting your juices going, again, that's going to be, even though you think you're visualizing, that's the actual core belief in the back of your mind, which will make none of this work. So
That's the
that's
unconscious mind nibbling away. That's yeah.
right.
Okay. Very cool. Lovely piece for you to just to reiterate to end on. Apart from how can people get in touch? How can they get more from you? So I'm sure there's going to be people who are listening to this thinking, oh, I want a bit more of Ryan's thinking here.
Yeah, I'm very active on LinkedIn. So if you follow or connect with me there, you'll be able to see some of the content that goes out daily. And then if you call me, my number's posted on my LinkedIn profile as well, but I'll say it here. If you miss it, you go back to my profile, but it's 415-994-0110. I guess I should say area country code +1 +1 415-994-0110. You can call me if I miss your call, especially if it's international. You're gonna have to compound that into LinkedIn or something, but leave a voicemail and I'll definitely get back in touch with you. If you don't leave a voicemail, I'll probably just think it's a robo spam call or something like that. But those are the two channels that are great to start conversations.
Robo Spam Calls is a different podcast. It's not even a podcast, is it? But yeah, okay, cool. So LinkedIn, give you a call. I would actually just again reiterate. I know you put loads of stuff on LinkedIn. It's great. I love seeing and hearing what you talk about. Thanks so much for taking time to come and share this. I know it's early morning with you. You're an early morning guy anyway, but I really do appreciate it. Some great stuff you shared.
Yeah, happy to be on the show. Appreciate the invite.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you for listening to the Sales Today podcast with me, Fred Copestake. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe for more and leave a review. If you didn't like it, also leave a review. It's all about feedback and learning.